Welcome back to From Nine to Mom, where we discuss balancing the 9 to 5 hustle with the beautiful chaos that we call motherhood. And today we're going to talk specifically about being working moms and working for other working moms. But before we do that, one of our working moms wrote into us and gave us a shit you can't make up story, and it has to be shared immediately. So, Katie, tell us what
Yeah.
happened.
So we can't get past this. And I was just laughing so hard when I read it. But so one of our listeners had said that their toddler was dipping goldfish on the counter into what she thought was dip. So goldfish in dip ended up being that it was hair paste on from earlier in the morning getting ready for the day. And it's
And
just so,
I feel like that's so real because as a working mom, as any mom, it doesn't matter what kind of mom you are, you've turned your back for that second. And it's
yeah,
what is in your mouth right now? What did you just put in your mouth? And the fact that she saw it, let it happen because she's thinking it's dip
it's
and it's
fine.
air
They're
paste.
being good. They're being good. They're sitting there
They're
eating.
quiet.
I'm I'm totally in that thing right now where it's like if we're a binky family. If
Same.
there's not a binky in Calvin's mouth, something else is in his mouth. So it's like, and now Jack has little toys, and like, a
It's
few weeks ago,
scary.
he straight up put peanut butter in his mouth for the first time. So like, always putting stuff in, and I'm always grabbing, like swabbing out his mouth or whatever it is. But
And they act like you're
hilarious.
murdering them. And then you want to call
Yes.
poison control because I think that we've all had let our kids eat something and been like, oh my God. I was running out the
How
house
bad is that?
to get a meeting, to go to a meeting the other day. And my mom yelled, oh, by the way, Daisy ate some door clings. I was like, what? Like, you know those window cling thingies? She's like,
Yep.
yeah. I was like, how, mom? She's like, I don't know. She found them and she was eating them. So I'm panicking, running out to another meeting. I'm on the phone with my friend. I was like, oh my God, Daisy just ate window clings. Do I call poison control? She's like, oh, Dylan ate window clings, a whole pack of
It's
them.
fine.
Totally fine. Totally fine. And I was dying because what are the chances that another child ate door clings? I don't know, or window clings. And it just goes to show you that we've all let our kids eat something that they shouldn't eat. And I think maybe if it was Colton, I would have called poison control, but I trust my friend. So if Dylan passed the gel clings, whatever, Daisy will be fine.
It'll be fine. But I think we have to dive into, our topic for today. So really talking about working for parents, really like having parents in the workforce and what that's like. And I think we got to start it back to when I first started at our company and started working underneath you,
Yes,
because at that time I had no kids. You had
correct.
just, Colton was maybe one.
Not even. I was pregnant and I went out on maternity. You got hired while I was on maternity
Yes.
and I came back. So Colton was 3, 4 months old when you started working for me.
We kind of started first, we
Yep.
first met really. And
Yeah.
so it was about a year, I'm thinking, when COVID started. So how old was he when COVID started? Because he was born in 2018,
He
19.
was a year and 3 months
Wow.
because it started in March and he turned a year that December before. So yes,
March.
we really started working together much more right around his year-old birthday, and then COVID hit, and that's, I think, where your mind immediately goes. And I'm just so curious because I remember sending you videos of Disney Plus had just come out and sending you videos being like the best babysitter ever, $7.99, trying to work at my table with Colton running around, and I'm sending you these videos and you don't have kids yet. Like, what went through your mind? What were you thinking?
Well, I think it's so funny because like I am looking back now, and I have always said to anybody that's on my team, I have pretty much all parents that work on my team, and I'm like, I truly don't know how you guys were doing it, knowing what I know now.
Yeah.
But back then, it was pre-kids. Ryan and I really hadn't even started trying to have kids, or like that wasn't part of the conversation for a little while into COVID anyway. And I think at first it was like, all right, how long is this going to last? We can make it happen for a month. So like we're doing digital meetings, which was fine because I was used to that. I had worked remote for, a while, 2 years before that anyway. So I
Yes.
was used to virtual stuff, and everyone's getting adapted and all that. I got Ryan teaching kids in the other room, and then you on meetings with Colton in the background, like watching TV, but like then you're getting up from the meetings. And I just remember we were in such a weird time work wise where I was trying to figure out how to grow my position. Like I was
Yes,
like,
I
I got to climb
remember.
the ladder, right? Like I got to
And we were in the middle of a
impress and I got to,
restructure.
yes, we were redoing our website. We were, doing a little rebranding and structuring. And I just remember being like, I got to climb the ladder. And then I'm on with you and you're clearly distracted, clearly
Mhm.
like, hey, I'm trying to do this. And I'm trying to pick up the slack, which I don't think I felt resentful at the time, like that I was picking up where, because you were
Yeah,
literally watching him like the whole time while you were momming and working.
yeah,
And so I would try to step in and like get everything done for us and make sure that, because me and you were kind of the team at that point.
yes.
And I'm trying to remember. I don't really feel like I felt like,
Well,
oh my
that makes
God.
me
There was
feel
probably
better.
like a couple times that I was like, oh, she can't meet right now because of this. And like the flexible schedule, like I wasn't as flexible then. I was like, no, we're supposed to meet right now. Why can't you meet? Like that
Yeah, pull
it
it
didn't make
together.
sense.
And I think COVID was so unprecedented, and I didn't plan on not having daycare. Colton was in daycare, and they just kept shutting down.
Right.
So I think there was like, what was it? It was probably a month and a half before my mom came down
Yeah.
and took over for a little while, and then I got like I can't remember if it was the nanny share that came first. I think that was it. But my
Yeah.
mom helped for a little bit because there was daycares really weren't taking new kids at the time, and
No.
mine kept closing. And I remember that month and a half feeling so guilty because it was my
Yeah.
first kid. I'd never not had daycare, never thought I would not have daycare, and trying I felt guilty for you and the team because I couldn't
Yeah.
be fully present, and I felt guilty to Colton because I was with him but not with him. I wasn't
Right.
spending my energy on him either. And then Jordan would come home and I'd be like, here, I need to get all this stuff done. So I remember feeling really guilty. And I think that for me, and I know we did a poll that we can talk about a little bit, I also managed for 10 years before having kids. And I worked for someone who had kids, and then I worked for a lot of people who didn't. And I remember managing my team, and when stuff would happen with their kids, this was obviously pre-COVID, and I worked retail and banking,
Hmm.
so in person. No, like you
Yeah.
said, you were used to digital. There was no digital. It
Right.
was all in person. So when someone would say, I can't come, my kid has this, or my kid's sick this week, and then literally 3 days later, they'd be like, now they have pink eye, I can't come in. And I remember being like, what the hell? Not that I was
Yeah.
not that I was mad, but I definitely was impatient or frustrated. Like, why? How can your kid really be
Yeah.
sick that many times? And then you have a kid that is sick for weeks on end, and you're like,
And you're like, I
totally
can't
get
make
it.
this up. I know.
I
Yeah.
totally
It's
get it. And I
definitely a
want to
total
apologize to those
shift.
people.
It's a total shift. I felt like too, because I was managing people and I was younger in my like later 20s, managing people older than me.
Hmm.
And so I always try to be sympathetic to people with kids. I was always like, I get it. You don't want to miss, because I knew in the future, I'm like, I want to be at all my kids' sports and all this and that. Like, so I was like, if someone's going to ask me to do that, I never want them to miss it because I wanted a good culture on my team.
Yeah.
But there was definitely always part of me that's like, I have to give special treatment. Like, I don't get that because I don't have kids. So why don't I get extra
I think
time?
that's exactly how I
So I
felt.
know people feel that way, but now I've told a couple of guys on my team were on my team before I had kids too. And I'm like, I just don't know how you guys did it during COVID. It's like insane. But I think that goes into our poll results, which I'm pulling up because we asked this week if your manager or you manage people that are parents or your manager is a parent, and how you kind of feel about that or how they feel about some of the excuses that you make or things that you have to do. So our results were 88% of people either manage people or have a manager that's a parent,
Yep. And I
which I
think
think is like not surprising.
not surprising.
And I mean, parents are just everywhere at this point,
Yeah. I
right?
mean,
Like
that's
you,
how we keep showing up. That's how we keep hiring
right?
people, or
Right?
people
You
are having
just
kids. We're all
they
from
just
somebody.
keep going. And then, so the follow up question that we had asked was, do you feel as an employee, your manager's annoyed when you have to make excuses, or do you feel like they cut you slack? And we actually had 20% of people say that their boss is annoyed
Yeah.
because of, I say excuses, but it's like they're not excuses. It's like legit
It's
stuff that
real.
comes up.
Yeah. And I think that is that 20%. I wonder, and this is not about age, it's about circumstance and what your positions were and what kind of environments you worked in before. Like you said, if you worked in a environment where there was already some remote or it was a huge team across the country and you met digitally, it's different. If you've worked in an environment or you were a manager in an environment where you were in office and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden something like COVID comes around and now everybody's hybrid working from home, kids, it changed everything
It
really.
did. Hmm.
And kids are everywhere now. They're working from home with their parents, which I can't do. I cannot watch my kid and work at the same time. I'm not capable. So
Yeah.
if you are, congratulations, but I am not. But the people who didn't have that luxury, think about it. They had to call in sick
Yeah.
or they had to take sick time or somebody had to figure something out. There was no like, oh my, here I have an extra, how many times have we done that? I have an extra coworker today. And I wonder
Yep.
if there's a level of resentment or frustration because they didn't get to do that. Right. Kind of like you said, when
Yeah.
you didn't have kids,
Yeah.
I don't get to do that. Like, and they're
Right.
being understanding. They're letting you do it because they realize there's nothing they can do about it. This is the
Right.
new way, but there's definitely frustration. And I know I've heard it from people who have even people who've had kids
Right.
that are in different industries or manage stuff. And that's,
Yeah.
we're very lucky. And I think that you and I have talked, we work for a family owned company. Everyone's very, very, and I know that that's a word people try not to say, we're family oriented, but everyone is pretty family oriented. So we
Yeah.
have a level of respect for each other when things go wrong and
Yep.
like you said, you picked it up for me when I needed it. I pick it up for you and the other people in the organization do that for each other. But there are industries out there, like we talked about, that don't have that.
That's what I was going to bring up. We know some of you voting in our polls and we know what you
Yes.
do. So, a couple of the people that we have voted that their bosses were annoyed all the time are in teaching, nursing, and those
Healthcare.
industries. Yeah, it is more, you have to be in person. There's no, I got to get my kid and work at home today.
That's not possible. You can't have the baby on your hip and be teaching a math lesson
Right.
or,
Right.
say, hey, I'm going to draw your blood and give you your medical exam over the
Right.
computer today because my kid
Right.
is home. And I think it sucks for those people because
Hmm.
they're going through the exact same thing as everybody else. And I
Yeah.
get why their managers are annoyed. I've been there, done that, have to revamp schedule,
Coverage and yeah.
coverage, figure it out.
Yep.
But it it does suck to be in that position to know
Hmm.
that there is no winning. And
Yeah.
I think that in my experience working for parents, specifically moms, so there's amazing dad parents out there too that are more understanding because they have kids. But
Hmm.
I do believe that there's still some of that old school mentality that goes on in places. So like if a guy stays home with their kid because they're sick, they're a hero. Like what a great dad. And if a mom has to stay home with their kid because they're sick, there's still a little bit of like, this is what, like, moms are so challenging. But the
Hmm.
reality of the situation, there's so many studies done, is that moms, especially ones that are out of our phase, but we've learned how to multitask and do so many different things that
Hmm.
you end up being the best employees you can hire because they they can relate to other people, they know how
Yep.
to multitask, they know how to get things done with a minimal
Yeah.
budget, resources and whatnot. So it it's tough to watch. I'm grateful that it's different for us than some of
So
those
grateful.
individuals,
Yes.
but it still exists out there for sure.
Absolutely, it does. And I think too, like, there's things where, we have the flexibility. So you always push the limits here and there, and you have to keep yourself in check because
Yep.
we don't have a job where you can't work 8 hours a day. You have to put the time in. So, like, for me, yesterday, I, had to leave a little early for Jack's soccer practice. I ended up working that extra hour at night. And so there's, the pros and cons of, when you're needed in person, you had that time in person. You don't have to touch your work when you're home.
Yeah.
There's all
You
those
can
types
turn
of
it off where we don't
things.
get to
Hmm.
turn it off. There you
Yeah.
can't step away. Not that anybody turns it off, but you
Right.
can't, if you're a teacher, you can't be with your student in that moment.
Right.
You
Right.
could do grading papers, lessons,
Sure.
of
Sure.
course. But for us, we have a different situation where we could, like you said, step away but have to make it up. But I am a fan, I've realized, of working late at night. I've told you this. Like, I love working when everyone's asleep and it's quiet and it's my mental space and capacity.
Yep.
And I think that it's more productive for me in some respects to do my task work at that time and then
Yeah.
do my teamwork and meeting work and planning
Yep.
during the day when everyone's present.
Absolutely.
But I also remember my very first boss. She was a huge mentor to me when I started working at the bank. And she has 3 beautiful daughters. They're amazing. And I remember her saying that just it's really tough raising kids as a working mom, especially one who's, like you said, we're trying to climb the corporate ladder, trying to be what's next? What's the next thing? How do we be the best?
Yep.
Manage people. You spoil your kids. She's like, you spoil your kids to make up for time lost, but then that kind of bites you in the butt too. So you are
Mm-hmm.
constantly towing the line of how much do you do versus how much do you invest in time wise to the
Mm-hmm.
kids? Because when you're networking and trying, think about us networking, it's at night,
Yeah.
it's when you're doing happy hour and it's
5
bedtime,
p.m. And I'm
and
like,
it
I'm
makes it
rushing home.
hard. It's the
Yeah.
hour and a half
Yeah.
you have with your kids. And that being said, that flexibility piece, having a working mom manager or working dad manager, anybody who's a parent, doesn't make them more understanding because it's their circumstance. That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
You think it should, but it's their experience with it
Mm-hmm.
that makes them more understanding. She understood because she's been there, but she also had great advice for, like you said, how to not toe the line so far that you're taking advantage of it. You still have to do
Right.
the things and put in the work to get what you want.
Yep.
But you don't
I think
understand
that's
until you're in it.
I think that's what makes my position interesting because I'm definitely the parent manager. So like I understand that, but I'm also a millennial manager, which I'm sure everyone's seen that side of TikTok because I think our
Mm-hmm.
listeners are all in a very age group here. And I'm just always the manager that's like, yeah, you got to do that. Like hamster's got to go to the dentist. Absolutely, you should go do that. Like there's that fine line of like we millennials have always been focused on a work-life balance regardless of parenting involved, like and
That's
regardless
so
of kids
true.
or anything.
Not the
Everyone's
elder
always wanted.
millennials, the true millennials. I'm an
Yes.
elder millennial, so it's a little different, but still
Yes.
millennial.
Yeah, and it's like we've always looked for positions that offered work-life balance. And you know I remember like when I was looking for new jobs, I was like, oh, I want to work at an agency that like there's a restaurant downstairs and like these perks and like all that. And like now I'm like, none of that shit matters at all. Like I just need flexibility so I can pick up my kids, do what I want when they, are eventually in
So
sports
you
and
just said
curriculars and that.
something really like I hate to use the word profound, but it was profound when it was first said to me.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend who is a male and does not have children,
Mm-hmm.
we were having a deep conversation about life and the difference because that was really important to me too. Work-life balance, work-life
Mm-hmm.
balance. What
Mm-hmm.
does work-life balance mean? And then you
Yeah.
said, but now I value flexibility. So we used to value people with work-life balance and flexibility are not the same thing.
Yeah.
So work-life balance is where you can genuinely like I'm present in those moments that I need to be present in. And like you said, you can socialize your friends that are coworkers. You
Yep.
can go do things you enjoy. Like when I thought about work-life balance, I want to go on vacations and go to happy
Yep.
hour, but also have a really good job and a great career. But
Yep.
flexibility is I need to go get Jack at 3:30 because that's when practice is. There's no way around it and be able to hop on
Mm-hmm.
again
Mm-hmm.
later and that's what COVID people don't realize. People got flexibility who were
Yeah.
able to get flexibility, but there are still people out there because of the type of job that they have that
Yeah.
cannot get that flexibility. That flexibility is
Right.
not built into their industry or their career path, and that is to be the
Yeah.
hardest thing.
And that's why a lot of people are leaving some industries, you know?
Yes.
They're not able to get it and they're seeing people out there getting it and they're like, "How do I get that? What do I got to do?" I mean, how
Yeah.
many TikToks will I scroll past that's like I'm in my mid 30s now and my goal is no longer to climb the corporate ladder. It's to make the most money I can with the least amount of work so I can spend time with my family.
Yes, and it's such a shift. And I think when that shift happens to you too, it's
Mhm.
challenging. So I grew up in a family where you work hard, you
Mhm.
stay focused, and you're going to get where you want to go. Right. And there was always somewhere I was going. Like I knew where I wanted to
Yeah.
go. And there wasn't that position, even here, like I've made it. I've made a position for myself and
Mhm.
fought to get it.
Yeah.
And then there's just a shift going on, whether you're a parent or not, but mostly parents or people
Mhm.
thinking about families. And am as an elder millennial, I'm like, okay, you got to show up, you got to work hard, you got to take
Yeah.
pride. But at the same time, I'm like, is that the most, how do you balance that with your newfound respect and understanding of what's important in life? And how do
Yeah.
you do both? Because you need people who are invested in companies to keep them going and to have that flexibility, because you might end
Mhm.
up in a corporate job that doesn't have that
Right.
flexibility. So how do you keep stuff going, but also respect the new person that you become and the new people that are around you? And I think that's where we used to have generational diversity training all the time at Target,
What an interesting topic. Who ran
right?
that?
I did for a while actually, but there were
at,
others that did it.
at 30 years old.
Well, think about how pissed people must have been. I was started running it at
They were like,
26
"Who
years
is
old.
this?"
Like, who the hell are you, right? Like telling
Yeah.
us about generational
Yeah,
diversity.
like
Now that I think about that, that's probably pretty bad. But anyways, we would do that and we would learn about it and then train on it. And now it's even more
Mhm.
unique because the generations, I feel like, are having transformations within themselves.
Yeah.
So it's a whole new level of understanding and training and learning. But it's working parents have been through it all. Whether you have a nanny or you have daycare or your parent comes over or whatever, you have the understanding of what it's like to have somebody call in sick or have somebody not show
Absolutely.
up or only be able to go to the doctor between 9 and 5, of course,
Mhm.
Monday through Friday.
Yep.
We've all been there, and we hope that it makes a difference in the way we are leading our teams.
I think it does. I think
I
it's
do.
made me a better manager in the fact of dealing with people because you have to have some grace being in management and be able to understand people and then also weed through the bullshit a little bit of
Yep.
like when are they taking advantage and not.
And
But
now we know even more.
yeah, like sometimes I'm like, oh, that excuse could be bullshit, but it might be legit. I don't
My
know.
golden retriever
That's
may have to go to swim practice today.
yeah,
I
like
don't
it's
know.
just part of it. So I think the biggest thing here is being able to always tell the truth too. Like when you're missing something, I always am like very upfront with what I'm doing, and I think that helps with a little more respect rather than make up excuses and lies around why I'm missing
I
things or
100%
have to
agree with that.
leave. Obviously circumstantial, because if you only have sick time and you got to be sick to use it, then
You got to do what you got
you
to
got the
do.
flu. But yeah, I think it's
No, you're
almost time.
right. Because if you're telling the truth, and that's what has happened, the transparency piece, there's less questions because
Yeah.
you're being that, like, hey, I got to do this right now.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you end up in that side of TikTok where people are making up fake excuses for what they're doing. And then
Yep.
people don't question you because they know you're going to come back and actually do what you said you were going to do and do the job that you said you're going to complete. And that's a very respectful thing. And the last thing I'll say before we clock back into the 9 to 5 is I do think becoming a parent made me more vulnerable as well. I was
Hmm.
always trying so hard, especially in my management, to
Yeah.
set a perfect example and be relatable, right? And engage and inspire my team, but be that Duracell energizer, like the bunny,
Hmm.
like I never stop. I can go. I don't need to sleep.
Yeah.
I've got it all together. And back in the day, that's what you thought people were looking for.
Right.
and I showed very little of the like I'm burnout
Mm-hmm.
or I'm broken because that was frowned upon. And now as a parent, I've become way more vulnerable and willing to
It's a
show
great
that
point.
emotion. And I think because of that, you could connect on a totally different level with people, whether they're parents or not. And I think it's helped me, and I think it's helped you be
Yeah.
a better manager, sure, but also better teammate and, you know, person, I would think.
We're all better people because we're parents. Sure.
Because we're a mess. We're all better
We're a
people
mess.
because now we're a mess, right?
We're
We're
just
not
all
better
down to the same
people.
level now.
We're not better people.
It
We're
humbles you.
yeah, humbled with how
There we
messy
go.
life can be. So
There we go. With
I guess
that
it's
said, it's time for us to clock out.
hot messes out, back into the 9 to 5.
See you next time.